With the first pick of the NFL draft, the Jacksonville Jaguars select Aidan Hutchinson, an edge rusher out of Michigan. The Jaguars, for the second year in a row, have the first overall pick. And all year, Trevor Lawrence, the former first overall selection, had been running for his life. He had barely any time in the pocket, and his best receiver was injured nearly the entirety of the season. But the offseason has come, and originally the reason why I didn't make a mock draft until free agency fizzled down is because the mock draft was going to be influenced tremendously based off of various free agency decisions, and the Jaguars have done enough to justify not having to draft Neal with the first overall pick. They've patched up their offensive line enough to where they can safely say that drafting Aidan Hutchinson, objectively the best edge rusher in the class, is the best decision to make. The Jaguars will get themselves a defensive captain for years to come to pair with their offensive captain that they drafted last year. With the second pick, the Detroit Lions select Travon Walker, an edge rusher out of Georgia. Now look, Travon Walker is the biggest wild card in this year's NFL draft, and this year's NFL draft isn't as predictable as last year's was. The Lions will be looking to draft the best available player here, and seeing as Travon Walker is a 275-pound, 6'5" edge rusher slash defensive tackle hybrid with the ability to absolutely wreck games, he's definitely the best option. Walker is a physical specimen, and sure, his numbers might not jump off the page, but when you consider the amount of talent that Georgia's defense had to begin with last year, it's going to be hard to translate true talent on paper. Walker ended up running a 4.5 40-yard dash at the combine, and for his size, that is absolutely mind-boggling. The Lions got themselves a defensive stalwart for years to come. With the third pick, the Houston Texans select Neal, an offensive tackle out of Alabama. Neal is probably the best all-around tackle in the entire NFL draft, and the Houston Texans have implied recently that they are all in on Davis Mills. This pick gives them a plug-and-play starter at the right edge. Between Laramie Tunsil and Neal on opposite sides of the offensive line, there's no doubt that Davis Mills will be well protected going into his sophomore season. With the fourth pick, the New York Jets select Ahmad Sauce Gardner, a cornerback out of Cincinnati. There's a lot of different ways that the New York Jets can approach this pick. They could take Ike Ekwonu to further protect Zach Wilson. They can select KAYVON THIBODEAUX, who at one point was the consensus #1 overall pick back in the middle of the collegiate football season. But in this instance, they take a chance on the most electrifying cornerback in the NFL draft, and that's Ahmad Gardner, who will give Robert Saleh more flexibility in the types of coverages and blitz packages that they can run, which is well worth the #4 overall pick. With the fifth pick, the New York Giants select Ikem Ekwonu, an offensive tackle out of North Carolina. Giants owner John Mara has made it very clear that he wants Daniel Jones to have one more fair shot to be the Giants franchise quarterback, and pairing up North Carolina tackle Ikem Ekwonu on the right side of the offensive line alongside Georgia's own Andrew Thomas on the left side would certainly be helping Daniel Jones out. Ekwonu is a solid pass blocker who will probably need a little time to develop into truly becoming a dominant pass blocker, but what is undeniable is Ekwonu's ability to run block. Ekwonu was hands down the best run blocking tackle in all of college football last season, and he'll make a fine addition to a Giants offensive line in progress. The Giants grab one of the final pieces of their offensive line. With the sixth pick, the Carolina Panthers select Kenny Pickett, a quarterback out of Pittsburgh. I know, this isn't supposed to be a deep quarterback draft. This isn't supposed to be an electrifying quarterback draft, and there are still plenty of QB options for the Carolina Panthers to trade for at the time that I'm recording this mock draft. But for some reason, they haven't inquired about Baker Mayfield or Jimmy Garoppolo. One can make the argument that the Panthers are done experimenting with hand-me-down QBs, and I believe although this is really soon for Kenny Pickett, the Panthers have a glaring need at the quarterback position during a pivotal year for Matt Rule. Pickett is a phenomenal prospect with all the physical tools you would hope that your starting QBs would have, aside from his tiny hands anyway. He has fluid mechanics but may need to adjust to more complicated NFL offenses. With the seventh pick, the New York Giants select KAYVON THIBODEAUX, an edge rusher out of Oregon. This is a huge steal for the New York Giants. Thibodeaux might just be a little overhyped by the media, but man, he can still ball. He might be the most athletic person in the entirety of the draft. His numbers won't reflect his potential as an edge rusher, but if he can add more moves into his pass rushing arsenal besides simply bull rushing, he will be something special. The Giants haven't had a talented edge rusher since the departure of Jason Pierre-Paul, and Thibodeaux would not only be the guy to fill that role, but he would also bring a special fire to this defense defense that they haven't had since their last Cinderella Super Bowl run. If the Giants can develop THIBODEAUX, then this pick is a steal. With the 8th pick, the Atlanta Falcons select Garrett Wilson, a wide receiver out of Ohio State. The Falcons have had an interesting offseason. They not only traded their franchise cornerstone QB, but their starting wide receiver also got suspended out of nowhere. For this reason, the Falcons are going to need to draft a true #1 receiver for new quarterback Marcus Mariota to throw the football to. That wide receiver would probably be Drake London if they didn't already grab Kyle Pitts last year, and they occupy a very similar role in an NFL offense. But instead, it'll be a wide receiver that could take the top off of the defense in Garrett Wilson. Scheme-wise, Garrett Wilson's speed would probably make a lot more sense on the Falcons than USC's Drake London or Alabama's Jameson Williams. With the 9th pick, the Seattle Seahawks select Jermaine Johnson II, an edge rusher out of Florida State. The Seahawks consistently for the past few seasons have been one of the worst teams in the entire NFL when it comes to rushing the passer. For that reason, they'll be selecting Jermaine Johnson II, a man who has all the moves in his pass rushing arsenal, and when it comes to getting to the quarterback, Johnson knows what he's doing. Johnson, since the Senior Bowl, has absolutely shot up draft boards. He ran a 4.5 40-yard dash and proved at the combine that he is physically on par, if not superior to most of the top edge rushers in this NFL draft. Johnson's only problem is consistency. On one play, Johnson can be the best pass rusher in all of college football, and on the next, he can be propped up and taken out of the play. With the 10th pick, the New York Jets select Jameson Williams, a wide receiver out of Alabama. The New York Jets have made a run at Tyreek Hill, DK Metcalf, and AJ Brown, so it's not exactly a secret that they are in the market for a wide receiver, but Jameson Williams was undeniably the best wide receiver in this draft class before his ACL tear in the national championship at the beginning of 2022. Williams has progressed well, and he's even said himself that he is recovering ahead of time. However, most reports are that for some reason, Williams simply won't be the first wide receiver selected just because of the stigma placed on players who get injured in their final year of college football. Fortunately for the Jets, it's the 21st century, and an ACL tear doesn't mean what it used to. Jameson Williams would be an absolute steal and a welcome weapon for Zach Wilson. With the 11th pick, the Washington Commanders select Devin Lloyd, a linebacker out of Utah. Devin Lloyd was probably the best all-around linebacker in all of college football last season. Lloyd can rush the passer, can take on blocks, can cover tight ends and running backs. He can do everything except play cornerback. Not only has Lloyd impressed on the field, however, but in the record books, Lloyd finished his career at Utah with 43 tackles for loss. Good for first in all of program history. Lloyd's motor never stops, and when he's on the field, a big play is just inevitable. The Commanders continue to build upon the defensive identity that they've started to cultivate since hiring Ron Rivera. With the 12th pick, the Minnesota Vikings select Derek Stingley Jr., a cornerback out of LSU. The last time the Minnesota Vikings decided to gamble on a cornerback from LSU in the first round, it turned out to be Patrick Peterson. If Derek Stingley was able to stay healthy throughout his career, he would have possibly been the #1 overall pick. I'm not exaggerating, seriously, he's that freaking good. His freshman season alone is the reason why he's being taken in the first round, because that potential is too good to pass up. His 2020 and 2021 film, when he has managed to stay on the field, isn't as good as his 2019 tape, but that could be attributed to injuries or coaching. Stingley has enough potential to be a Hall of Famer, but consistency and injuries are ultimately what might be his downfall, or the start to a true underdog story, which we've covered Derek Stingley in a biography video on this channel. Make sure to check that out. With the 13th pick, the Houston Texans select Kyle Hamilton, a safety out of Notre Dame. One of the biggest needs that the Houston Texans have is a linebacker, and Kyle Hamilton is so freaking versatile that he could play hybrid safety slash linebacker as well. If safeties were valued equally as other positions in the NFL draft, Kyle Hamilton would probably have been a top 5 pick. Hamilton in college, and especially his senior season, has been dominant at his position, whether it's been in coverage of wide receivers or running backs, single high coverage, 2 deep safety coverage in the slot. Hell, Hamilton is 6 feet 4 inches and 220 pounds and could play linebacker if a defensive coordinator really asked him to. The only thing that has Hamilton falling down draft boards is the fact that he ran a 4.59 40-yard dash, and the fact that he predominantly played safety in his college career. Ultimately, no matter where Hamilton lines up, he's going to be a stud. With the 14th pick, the Baltimore Ravens select Jordan Davis, a defensive lineman out of Georgia. Jordan Davis is a 6'6", 340-pound defensive tackle out of Georgia. And what makes him so special is the fact that he can move like a train, as he ran a 4.78 40-yard dash at the NFL Combine. Besides being as nimble as a ballerina on his feet, Jordan Davis is an absolute brick wall in the running game. Davis ended his career at Georgia, making 41 straight tackles without missing a single one. Sure, Jordan Davis might never develop into a dominant pass rusher, but one thing's for sure, no one is running through Jordan Davis. With the 15th pick, the Philadelphia Eagles select Drake London, a wide receiver out of USC. The Philadelphia Eagles seem to be sold on Jalen Hurts for at least one more season, so to give him no excuses whatsoever to line up alongside DeVonte Smith will be the 6'5" monster Drake London. Jalen Reagor, a first-round pick a few seasons ago, doesn't seem to be what the team expected. London will fill that hole specifically, and possibly even more, as his consistent production outside could help receiver DeVonte Smith get more snaps in the slot. London has by far the biggest catch radius in the entire draft class, and his potential is through the roof. The only questions surrounding him are his health and possibly some issues with dropping the football. With the 16th pick, the New Orleans Saints select Charles Cross, an offensive tackle out of Mississippi State. The Saints had an interesting offseason, signing more quarterbacks than starting tackles. The loss of starting tackle Terron Armstead in free agency will be one of the toughest holes to fill on the roster, but the Saints will try their hardest by drafting tackle Charles Cross. Cross might need to work on his run blocking a little bit, but he is the definition of an elite pass protector. In his 2021 game against Alabama, Cross had 66 pass blocking attempts recorded and did not give up a single pressure that game, and let up just 16 pressures all season on over 700 pass attempts. But the question is, will he be protecting Jameis Winston or Andy Dalton? With the 17th pick, the Los Angeles Chargers select Bernard Raymond, an offensive tackle out of Central Michigan. The Chargers seem to have all the pieces in place after this offseason in order to finally make a true championship run, but one sneaky factor is throwing a wrench in their plans, and that's the departure of tackle Brian Bulaga. To fill that hole and to protect Justin Herbert for potentially a playoff push will be tackle Bernard Raymond out of Central Michigan. Raymond is a great tackle prospect in almost every aspect. However, his one downside is his instincts. Raymond first started playing offensive line in the first place in 2020 after playing tight end his whole collegiate career. With the right coaching staff and some time, Raymond can be a tremendous offensive lineman. With the 18th pick, the Philadelphia Eagles select NAKOBE Dean, a linebacker out of Georgia. Dean just seems like a special player whenever you watch him on the field. He's fast, he's twitchy, he can make all the plays you need him to make in the middle of the field. He can cover tight ends and can plug holes in the running game like it's nobody's business. The main issue you see with most linebackers is they're sometimes too slow to stop the running back before they get a significant amount of yards. But with NAKOBE Dean, if anything, he's faster than most running backs he's played against in college. With the 19th pick, the New Orleans Saints select Malik Willis, a quarterback out of Liberty. The New Orleans Saints didn't trade for 2 picks in this year's NFL draft for nothing. Willis won't be ready to start right away, and that's okay. The New Orleans Saints currently have Jameis Winston and Andy Dalton as a bridge QB and spent an earlier pick on an offensive lineman. With the impending return of Michael Thomas and possibly another wide receiver being selected later on in this draft, the New Orleans Saints should come out of their first NFL draft following the Sean Payton era with a stronger team. If the Saints can buy Willis at least one season to learn the offense on the bench, he should be a lot of fun to watch in New Orleans for years to come. With the 20th pick, the Pittsburgh Steelers select Desmond Ridder, a quarterback out of Cincinnati. Surprise! Yes, Desmond Ridder has been rumored to be rising up draft boards and even in the first round conversation. And the Steelers, after the retirement of Ben Roethlisberger, are in the market for a starting quarterback. The defense is there to win and the offensive line might need a little work, but Najee Harris is a stud and this team is possibly a quarterback away from being playoff contenders again. The quarterback to possibly take them there will be Desmond Ridder. First of all, Ridder would bring a dual threat element to the Steelers offense that they haven't had since a young Big Ben. And secondly, his ability to buy time with a less than spectacular offensive line could be what saves Matt Canada's offense. Ridder has gotten better every season of his 4-year career at Cincinnati, and that's one of the most important things to look for in an NFL quarterback. With the 21st pick, the New England Patriots select George Karlaftis, an edge rusher out of Purdue. This would be an absolute steal for the New England Patriots because after trading edge rusher Jace Winovich to the Browns for linebacker Mack Wilson, the Patriots will be looking to add a true pass rusher to their team, and that pass rusher will be George Karlaftis. KARLAFTIS. KARLAFTIS might just end up being as good as any of the other edge rushers taken within the top 10 of this draft. KARLAFTIS is a physical monster and has a variety of pass rushing moves that in any other draft class would probably make him a top 10 if not a top 5 pick. KARLAFTIS is a steal and will be just another feather among many in the cap of Bill Belichick. With the 22nd pick, the Green Bay Packers select Zion Johnson, an offensive guard out of Boston College. The Green Bay Packers had to cut a few players in order to get underneath the salary cap and also had to let a few more walk as well. Among those players were guys like Billy Turner and Elgton Jenkins, and Elgton Jenkins can probably fill his hole at the right tackle position, but to fill Jenkins' hole at guard will be Zion Johnson. Zion Johnson is a stud pass blocker out of Boston College and might just be the best interior lineman in the entire draft. Johnson has the strength to absolutely manhandle interior defensive linemen, and if he can translate that into the NFL, he'll be a consistent Pro Bowler for years to come. With the 23rd pick, the Arizona Cardinals select Trent McDuffie, a cornerback out of Washington. The Cardinals need a true number 2 cornerback to play alongside Byron Murphy, and that man will be Trent McDuffie. McDuffie has everything you want in a cornerback except length, but still, McDuffie doesn't let that stop him. He has a high motor whenever he's on the field, and in all of 2021, he didn't let up more than 40 yards in a single game, while only allowing 2 hole deep catches in his entire college career. He is a true lockdown corner, and if the Arizona Cardinals can finally get their offense and defense to be consistent, this team will be scary. With the 24th pick, the Dallas Cowboys select Trevor Penning, an offensive tackle or offensive guard out of Northern Iowa. After a rough offseason involving their offensive line, the Dallas Cowboys will be looking to rebuild a unit that they invested so much in. Replacing tackle Lael Collins or any guard position will be tackle/guard hybrid Trevor Penning. Penning might need to work on his pass protection slightly, but he is objectively one of the best run blockers in all of college football. Penning scored the highest ever run blocking grade in Pro Football Focus history last season at 99.9. But the only question about Penning is, will he be able to do it against top level competition? Penning played at an FCS program called Northern Iowa, but if he can translate that to the NFL, he'll be a great addition for the Dallas Cowboys. With the 25th pick, the Buffalo Bills select Chris Olave, wide receiver, Ohio State. The Buffalo Bills had to cut a few players in order to get the cap space they needed this offseason to make the moves they wanted to make, and one of the players they cut was wide receiver Cole Beasley. To replace him, the Bills will be drafting receiver Chris Olave. Olave has absolute burners as he ran a 4.39 40-yard dash at the NFL Combine and has all the potential to become an elite wide receiver at the next level. Olave can naturally get separation with his speed, however, he isn't as advanced at route running as some of the other receivers in this draft. If Olave can get proper coaching and can develop, he will be a star. With the 26th pick, the Tennessee Titans select Kenyon Green, a guard out of Texas A&M. The Tennessee Titans this offseason will be looking to add a few pieces to their offensive line. Why not add a few positions all at once with the selection of offensive lineman Kenyon Green? Green is a special player. Not only can he play left guard and right guard, but he can also play the left tackle position as well. He is insanely mobile for his size at 325 pounds, and in the final 7 games of his college career, he didn't let up a single pressure. His NFL comparison is probably Elgton Jenkins, a man who can play almost every single position on the offensive line. With the 27th pick, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers select Devonte Wyatt, a defensive lineman out of Georgia. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers have a pretty complete roster, but what wouldn't hurt is another big body on the defensive line, and for that reason they will draft Georgia defensive lineman Devonte Wyatt. Wyatt is a solid run stopper at 315 pounds and can plug holes if you ask him to do so, but unlike the other Georgia defensive linemen in this draft, Wyatt can actually rush the passer as well. Wyatt showed out in the Senior Bowl, jumping up draft boards, but even before then, Wyatt had pressures in 12 of 14 games he played last season, and he even had 6 pressures alone in his start against Vanderbilt. Line him up against Shaq Barrett and Vita Vea, and the Bucs might have a top-tier pass rush once again next season. With the 28th pick, the Green Bay Packers select Treylon Burks, a wide receiver out of Arkansas. If there's any Green Bay Packers fans that didn't click off the video after their first pick that was mocked in this video, let me know in the comment section down below. Because after addressing the offensive line first, after what feels like forever, the Packers will finally draft a wide receiver in the first round. That wide receiver will of course be filling a very big hole of Davante Adams a season prior, and after seeing his 2021 collegiate season, there's a chance that he can do just that. That wideout will be Treylon Burks. Burks possesses a unique physique. At 6'3", 225 pounds, Burks can still fly. Burks doesn't just rely on his natural size to go up and grab balls. His speed creates natural separation that he can take advantage of easily due to his aforementioned natural size. The Aaron Rodgers to Treylon Burks connection might be something special, and you add that to the wide receiver core of Randall Cobb and Sammy Watkins, and I feel like the Green Bay Packers will be just fine. With the 29th pick, the Kansas City Chiefs will be selecting Andrew Booth, a cornerback from Clemson. To help secure their secondary with the first of their 2 draft picks, the Chiefs will be selecting cornerback Andrew Booth Jr. Booth has been a solid cornerback his entire college career, but his play is truly defined by his ball hawking ability. Booth has special ball skills for a player at the cornerback position, and although he may give up a few more receptions than you'd like to see, he more than makes up for it in turnover opportunities. If he can get the proper guidance under Andy Reid, he has the chance to develop into the Chiefs' next defensive captain. With the 30th pick, the Kansas City Chiefs select George Pickens, a wide receiver out of Georgia. Really, another Georgia player? Yes, the Georgia Bulldogs seriously were that good last year in college football. George Pickens will be added to the wide receiver core of Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs to help replace Tyreek Hill. Pickens is 6'3", 200 pounds and runs a 4.47 40-yard dash. So he has a good mix of size and speed at the receiver position. Pickens struggles sometimes with more physical cornerbacks and could learn to use his size a little bit more. But other than that, if Pickens can stay healthy, there are no signs saying that he can't become a true #1 wide receiver in the NFL. With the 31st pick, the Cincinnati Bengals select Tyler Linderbaum, a center out of Iowa. To help complete their offensive line overhaul, the Cincinnati Bengals will be selecting center Tyler Linderbaum. You can't really go wrong with this pick because it's an offensive lineman out of Iowa, so of course they're going to be a stud. But in all seriousness, Linderbaum has been the top center in all of college football for a while now, and in the entirety of his collegiate career has only let up just 2 sacks. Linderbaum might be the safest pick in the entire draft. Similar to positions such as running back and safety, centers are undervalued and tend to be the least focused on part of the offensive line. With the 32nd pick in the 2022 NFL Draft, the Detroit Lions select Matt Corral, a quarterback out of Ole Miss. With the final selection in the first round, the Detroit Lions will be taking a flyer on a man who has been jumping up draft boards, and before his injury in the 2021 Sugar Bowl, was probably the #1 quarterback in the NFL Draft. That man, of course, will be Matt Corral. Corral is awesome to watch. He can make throws without setting his feet, he has way more arm strength than you'd expect, and he's even a little mobile as well. Corral has everything you'd want in a starting quarterback, except just like many other young quarterbacks, Corral can struggle to read defenses and often gets stuck on his first or second read. If he can sit for a while, he could probably be a long-time NFL starter. Let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think about this mock, and if you want another mock draft that includes trades, make sure you drop a like on this video. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.